So Eagle's been around for a long time. I'm not sure exactly how long. I'm thinking at least 15 years, if not longer. I know that I used it as a classroom teacher and found it to be one of the best tools that the state had ever provided for us. Since that time, it's gone through a couple of transitions. There are some things that I don't like about it in its current state, but it's also, I think, still a good tool. And I've done a little bit of digging into it more this afternoon, just prior to this meeting, and found out some things that I think may be helpful to you as we go through this that I didn't know were still there. So anyway, Eagle is, as you can see on your screen here, it is an assessment system that is put out by the State Department of Louisiana. So I've got a user guide here that's from the State Department. Notice this says it's for all users. And what that means is all users includes teachers, obviously, but it also includes administrators and district leaders and even state department people. There's information here for everyone. So if you're just going through this user guide and you're not paying attention to who the intended recipient is, you might mistakenly think that there's something available to you that's actually not, based on your role. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to show you the basics. It's really a fairly simple piece of software to use once you've kind of gone through it one time and seen the basics. But I'm going to show those to you, and hopefully it'll be helpful for you to be able to use this in your class. First of all, knowing where it is, I'm going to skip on over to page 10 on the user guide. And I'm not going to stay on this user guide the whole time. We're actually going to go into the website. But the first thing you need to know, if you didn't already, is that Eagle is now, it used to be in its own location on the web, but now it is in the eDirect, the DRC site. I'm not sure what we refer to that as. You'll notice on here it says eDirect on the actual user guide here. But if you go to the website, which I'm going to switch over to that quickly, and you'll see that it says, let's see, if I can make this happen. Yeah, so as we go to the DRC website, it actually says DRC and not eDirect. I usually say DRC/eDirect or something like that. Hopefully you know how to get into this. This is where you find all the interim assessments, diagnostic assessments, and so forth. So this is in the same place. So we would log in. Typically, it's the first part of your Caddo email address. And actually, now that I'm doing this, I think it may be your entire email address. Let's see. Yeah, it's your entire email address, sorry. And then whatever designated password you would have put in for that. So if you're not sure how to get into DRC Insight, or it's commonly referred to as eDirect, that's something you can contact me on that. You can send me an email, but you should probably also be able to contact your local school administrator for help with that. But I'm happy to help if you need that. Once we go into eDirect, at the top of the page, we see My Applications. And if you're familiar with this, if you've been here before for interims or for diagnostic testing or anything else related to student data, then this is familiar. If you haven't been here, pretty much everything LEAP 360 is in this website, plus a lot more. Our district level people access data here on students and schools and so forth. Just a ton of information here regarding assessment. You'll notice the very last thing here under other links is Eagle 2.0. So that's where we went. We went into eDirect, or the DRC Insight. We went under My Applications, and then there's Eagle 2.0. Now, I don't know if yours is coming up with this screen, but I noticed this week that mine gives me a choice of 1819 or 1920. I'm not sure why we would want to go under 1819 unless maybe you've worked on this last year and maybe you've stored some tests there. Then that might be the only reason you need to go back to that. But if you're new to Eagle, you're probably going to want the 1920. And again, I'm not 100% sure that it's at the teacher role that you would even see that screen. But just in case. All right, so I'm going to actually skip around from the order of the user guide that I just showed you and try to go in the order that I think makes the most sense to a teacher as far as how you would use this resource. I didn't probably spell this out clearly enough, but Eagle is an assessment platform, a digital assessment platform The items here are created by DRC, the same company that makes our spring tests. So we feel good about the alignment there, that if you're using items from their item banks here, then you should be on track and doing some really good things in correlation to our spring testing. So the first thing I want to look at is just this first page that you get to here. It's fairly simple. You notice you've got student testing, tests, item banks or item bank, and then reports, and then you have a help tab there. So that's the home page. The help page is simply going to take you to an email and a phone number. So you can't, it's not an interactive help page, but I have found them to be pretty quick to respond in both of those, either email or phone. So feel free to use that. Of course, you know, as well, and we have some people here at Central Office who know way more than I do about this whole platform. So if I can't answer your questions, then you can either go to the help desk or I can refer you to someone else here who can. All right, the next thing in the user guide was student testing. Now, I'm actually saving that till toward the end because I want to walk through just what's here first. So I want to start with the item bank. And in this item bank, you're going to see items, passages, images. I'm not certain that you see passages and images. Just know that you may not see those two. Items is really all you're going to need here. Passages tends to refer more to ELA, social studies, and science. You can access math passages here, but they're just really the text of the problem. So not a lot of use there. And then you got some basic filters here. You've got grade levels. So if I want to go look at 6th grade Eagle items, I can click 6th. I want to narrow that down to mathematics. And then I can type in standards or other identifiers here if I want. If I click search at this point, it's going to bring up every 6th grade math item they have. And it looks like about 324 altogether. Now, that's probably not the way you want to search. The best thing I find is to click this advanced filter. And in the advanced filter, I just start going in order from left to right, top to bottom. I would click on the Louisiana Student Standards. I don't even know if they have GLEs and other things in here. It looks like they do. I'm surprised by that, but we want to stick to Louisiana Student Standards for math. And then notice it's going to break it down by grade level, and it goes all the way through high school. So if we're doing 6th grade, I would click grade 6. Then it's going to take me to the clusters of standards. So let's say I want to pick an equations expressions standard here. And I could hit search at any point along the way here. I'm just showing you how you can narrow it down. Next, I would look at the breakdowns there. I could go to B. I don't know why A didn't have a title there. Let's see. Well, here are the specific standards under the A cluster. So there's standard EE 6.EE.A.1. And now if I hit search, I'm only going to pull the items available under that standard. And you'll notice for that particular standard, there are only 4. And then it's really small print out here to the right, but you see sort of an item type out here. So MC is obviously multiple choice. SA, I believe, is short answer. MS is multiple select. And there are many other item types here in the system, but those are the 3 available for 6EEA1. Okay, so that's how we would search for items. Out here to the right, you'll notice that I can click on this preview icon. And for some reason, it makes me click a second time as it pulls it up, and I need to preview again. And then not only can I look at that item, this is where some teachers I've seen using this as a display in their classroom. Because notice the tools from our state test are available to me here. So I've got this cross-off tool where I can come in and eliminate answers that I don't think belong. I've got a highlighter so that I can actually highlight text. I've got sticky notes, so I can make me a sticky note and type a hint or some kind of instructional piece right here as a teacher. Got a magnifier. I've got the line guide, which is kind of a reading tool there for students with that accommodation, and then of course a calculator. And notice it's going to bring up the calculator specific to that grade level. So sixth grade, we know, can only use a basic 4-function calculator, so that's all that's going to allow. So you could actually, in previewing this, when you go in the preview section of this website, this could be something you had on your screen as a bell ringer, or it could go up as an exit ticket, or it could even be part of instruction, and those tools would be available to you in real time. And I can even click on an answer. It doesn't really mean anything because it's not going to be graded because it's not attached to anyone, but you can click and unclick answers as well. So that's kind of cool to preview an item. It's not just so that you can preview it as a teacher, but it also gives you the option as a teacher to put it up in front of the class and use it there. And you can do this, in a minute. I'm going to show you how you could set up several of these and have several of them up at one time, or be able to scroll through them. Okay, and notice that came up in a separate tab. So when I close that tab, it takes me right back to where I was in the website. So that's the item bank section. Again, the images and passages, if I click on that, it's just, those are going to be the images that are available in the items. So I don't know where and when you would use those. So to me, the items is really all that you need to be concerned about. Notice that while I'm in Eagle, the navigation tools are within the page. So you don't want to hit the back arrow for your browser here. You want to hit the back to home at this point. And now I'm back to the page where we started. Okay? The next thing I wanted to take you to, now that you see where you can find all the items that are in Eagle, is now how could I pull some of those items together in the form of a test, or it doesn't necessarily have to be a test. It could be a homework assignment or a classwork assignment, or just any way you want to pull some things up. And so here I'm in the test menu. And notice again, I've got a very basic filter set. I can go by grade. Again, I'm just going to stick with sixth grade. I'm going to go with math. And it says active and inactive. I really honestly don't know what that means. So we're going to choose active items, I guess. If you already have built tests, you can search for those by name for the ones that you've built. So if you have been working on this for a while and you built a big library of tests, you can search for those here. And then probably one of the most important features on almost every page is up in the top right. It's this actions button. So I'm in the test page and I've got actions here. When I'm on the main menu of the test page, the only action that's going to come up is I can create a new test. And then down here below are the tests that I've actually created myself. And just as a side note, this I think is something I'm going to try to get out very soon. But I've actually been working on setting up some tests, and I use that word loosely, working up some problem sets based on standard. So as you can see here, what I've done is I've set up a problem set based on every standard, 6th and 7th. I haven't gotten all the 8th grade finished yet. But you can see out there how many. In fact, 6 EEA 02B, there are no items currently available in Eagle. So you can see that information there. But basically, these are all set up, and they're not shared with you yet, so they won't be showing up on your screen. But if you go in, I tried to, before this session started, I tried to share this first one with as many people as I could, 6 EEA 01. So if you log into your account, you might see that one under your list, and it would be one that I shared. Now, on this particular one, since I have shared it out, so I clicked on it, and now I'm seeing the items that are in that test. Again, I'm using the word test loosely. This is what it's called in Eagle when you set up a group of items. Whether you want to use it as a test or not is your own business. But there were only 4 items in that standard. Again, I can preview those items as I showed you a minute ago. And then under actions, I don't have very many choices here. I can copy this. Let's say I wanted to have these same 4 items and then maybe add them to it, but I don't want to change this particular one. I can just copy it and then add to the copy and rename the copy. I can inactivate the test, which just sort of archives it in your account. I can share the test with other people. And I'm not sure about the extent to which you can share these yourself. I'm pretty sure you can share them with other teachers in your school. I'm not sure if you can share them with other teachers at other schools in Caddo. Not positive about that. But then notice I also have the option to preview the test. And that's what I was talking about earlier. I can actually, instead of just having the one item from the item bank, now I can actually put up on display all 4 of these items related to that standard. Now, it's not going to put them up at the same time. It's just going to have one at a time. But notice here, I actually have 4 questions to choose from now. So this could be something you could use in the context of a lesson. Pull this up and be able to walk through these problems with your students, or have them working in groups, or using one of the other instructional strategies indicated in our curriculum. Again, those opened in a separate tab in my URL, so I can close that out and go right back to where I was. But that's a test that I had shared with a lot of people, hopefully you guys. Now, if I go back to my test, I want to click on a different one now that I did not share. Notice the little icon here that shows that I shared, that one's been shared with others. If I go to one that has not been shared, this next one, and notice this one has 14 items. Now if I click on actions, I have a few more options that I didn't have before. I have some editing options. And you can probably guess what's going on here. Because I shared that other one out with other people, I'm no longer allowed to edit that test. They do that on purpose, because if I've shared it out and then edit it and the teacher has administered it to kids, it can really mess up the data. So once I've shared it out, I'm not able to edit that one any longer. What I would have to do is make a copy of it and edit that copy. So there's some similarities there with Google Docs, if you're familiar with that. But under this one now, since I've not shared this one out with anyone else, I have the option to edit details, edit instructions, and edit item. Now, every one of these has some default instructions, and you can see them here. Read these directions carefully. This test has multiple choice questions only, blah, blah, blah. So just some basic questions that are set up by the people. But if I go under edit those instructions, I can come and create my own instructions for this test or this assignment, or whatever you want to give, however you want to give to kids. Notice you've got text font editing capabilities here, color, bolding, strike through, underline. You can do bullets and so forth. Center. So some basic formatting options there that are available with editing the instructions. The other 2 editing features here, edit details. So that's the name of my test. I also put a description, subject, grade level. And notice that when I put the grade level, I can still add other grade level items to this, even though I designate it as a 6th grade test. And then I don't know what the reference document is. This says grade 6 math reference sheet. I think that's something that becomes available to students who take this test. So that's part of the labeling process here. When I label this as a 6th grade test, it will give students in the testing tools section access to the 6th grade math reference sheet from the State Department. So pretty basic stuff there. And then finally, probably the bigger part that you'd be interested in is that I can edit items. And what happens there is it brings up the list of the 14 items that I have in here. Notice I've got choice to add items or add passages. Again, I don't think you'll be adding any passages in math, but I could add more items from other standards, from other grade levels, whatever. And then notice out here, I not only have the preview icon, but I also have a delete icon, remove item from test. So I can take an item out. I can reorder them by just coming in here to the middle and hold down my cursor, my mouse, and slide it to where I want it. And then it's moving those around and reordering the numbers. So again, not a lot of options there, but just some things to do if you want to modify something that you've already created. All right, so that's the testing tab. And I go back, remember I'm navigating with these in-house on-site arrows. I'm not using my browser's back page. So we've looked at item bank and we've looked at tests. So if you want to go and search items just for use in your class, one at a time, that's fine. Or if you want to go look, if you want to bring some of those items into what they call a test, and again, you can either administer that as a test or a homework assignment. It doesn't, don't get hung up on the word test. And then the next part of this that I wanted to show you is actual student setup. Now, when Eagle first started years ago, the state automatically uploaded rosters from the districts about once a month. So they weren't always totally up to date, but they were usually fairly up to date. And if you were missing someone, you had an option to be able to add that student in. Problem was you had to get a social security number and some other information, so it was a little tricky to do that, but at least you had that option to do it. And I used that option from time to time when I had a student add and the state had not updated the rosters yet. The way I understood it when they updated it a few years ago, they stopped allowing that. They stopped having that option where the state had the student rosters there. However, as I went in today, I'm not sure that that's the case. I think the students possibly could be there. But basically what you would need to do is set up your student groups or your classes. If you want to make a test and give it online within the Eagle platform and have it self-graded and look at the Eagle reports. So I don't want to spend too much time on this. If you want to get into this and really use this feature, I'm all for it. I used to use this feature when I was a classroom teacher. I gave online assessments in Eagle, even unit assessments to my students. They got instant feedback. They were required to go back and do test corrections within Eagle, or actually they pulled out the grading from Eagle and did their corrections on a separate sheet of paper. But I found this to be a very useful assessment tool in the classroom. So I would encourage you to look into it and use it if you want, but you may just be using it as a resource to find practice items or items to be used in instruction or whatever. But basically what you would do here is you would set up your groups by, let's see, so these are the groups that are available. Notice I don't have any available. So I would go to Student Groups tab, and under Actions, I would say New Student Group. And again, you probably won't have all these options. For me, I'm able to pull up all the schools. You probably will only have access to your school, so it may already show up as you go in here. Notice mine shows up automatically to the Caddo. Yours will probably already show up automatically to your school. I can name this Advanced First Period. I just chose Broadmoor because it was the first middle school on the list. I can give it a description. I can say this is 8th grade math class, or let's say 6th grade. If it's a general level class or honors, you can do whatever you want there. And then again, we want to actually use the 6th grade tab. So I've named that class. Now here's what I didn't think was available. I didn't think you could import students. I thought you had to type them in manually. But notice when I click the Add Students tab here, I had this student list come up, which I'm assuming is the list of Broadmoor 6th graders. I'm not positive about this, but I was kind of excited when I saw the student list, because that could make your life a lot easier if you're able to go in and see the entire student list for your school at that grade level and then just check them off. See, notice I can click on it, check off the ones I need, and add them to this group, which I'm calling my first period. So hopefully that works for you. If not, then you may have to enter them manually, but it looks like they've got student rosters there. What I'm not sure of at this point is, like I said, in the old days, there was an option to add a student who was not in this roster. And I just usually had to call the school counselor and get a couple pieces of information, I think a date of birth and a social security number, and type that in. It doesn't look like that's available any longer. So if you set up your class rosters and there's a student missing, just contact me or contact the help desk and see if some of us can help you get that done quickly. Because that would be a holdup if you were trying to administer one of these online through the Eagle system. Anyway, once I've got my class set up, I would click Done, and then I would be able to assign tests or assignments to that class. And notice you've got the options to edit and so forth. One of the things I forgot to mention under the, let me go back to the home page, under the test page, when I was looking at actual tests that I had created, I didn't mention, I was showing you the editing features, but also below the editing features, you've got where you got the preview test, but you also can pull up that test as a PDF. And notice it gives you a couple of check boxes here. If you don't check either of the boxes, it'll pull up a PDF. Well, I'll just show you. Let me pull it up here. Without checking the boxes, this is what I get. I get the instructions, and then I get a PDF with the items fairly compacted together without taking up too much paper. If I do the PDF and I click on one item per page, obviously we know what that's going to give us. One item per page. So that's going to be a lot of paper, but it was only, I guess, 5 questions, so not too big of a deal. So if you had, a small number of questions and you wanted students to have paper to work them on, to show their work and explanations, then that might be a good option. And then the other option available under the Create PDF is Show Answer Key. And you might think that that's going to pull up the test and the answer key. Well, it doesn't. It only pulls up a test key with the answers bubbled in. So obviously you'd want that for grading purposes if you were going to do this by hand, but you wouldn't want that for the student version. Okay, going back to the website. We've covered just about everything that I was going to go through, and I know it's a very sketchy, quick overview of it. I want to open the floor for discussion in just a second. The last thing I wanted to show you, there are reports. And in the reports tab, I've got a few options here. And notice mine has district. Yours will probably not have district performance, but you should have school performance. I'm not positive. Test session reports. Test session detail reporting, test session by user, statistic reports, and I don't know what's under the other. In fact, I've never clicked on that. That may be something that you import. But you have reports here after they've been self-graded. Now, there's also a situation where score items. So when I'm in tests, if I've administered tests, let's see. Educator Scoring is on page 129. And you see it's a very long user guide, but it's sectioned off pretty well, and it's pretty easy to find what you need. But on page 129, you've got the Educator Scoring part. And I'm not going to take the time to go through all this detail, but it just goes through, just like we do on DRC with the interims and so forth, and even in Illuminate. A lot of items are scored by the computer, but there are some items that the computer cannot score. So we as educators have to go in after our students finish the test or whatever it is, and we have to hand score certain items. So these are the instructions on making that happen. And it's got all the details. It's got screenshots, pretty self-explanatory there as you go through it. Again, you've got a number for a help desk that you can call, and you feel free to call me. I'm not an expert in this part of the system because it's changed since I use it as a teacher, but I'd be happy to walk through it with you if that's what you'd like. So just a quick overview again, back to the home page. Item bank, if you're just wanting to find some items to use in your class. And again, the key thing there is to do the advanced search. So when you go in, this is typically what you see. You can pick a grade level, mathematics, and you can type in some identifiers, although you don't always know how the standards are going to be typed up and that sort of thing. So I like to go to the advanced filters. Be sure you click on Louisiana student standards, a grade level, and just keep narrowing it down until you get to the standard you want. And then once you've got your filters as narrow as you want them to be, then click search. And you can find however many items. Keep in mind that some standards, there are a small number of standards that have no items in Eagle at this point. They tell us that they're adding continuously, so maybe that will change. There are some standards that have almost 60 items for that one standard. So it's kind of a variety as far as how many items you will find per standard. So you'll just kind of search that. Also keep in mind, I'm working on building the standards into individual tests, and I'm trying to find out a way to share those a little easier than what was taken this afternoon. But the second thing we looked at was tests, and the main thing there are actions where you would create a new test, and then you basically use that item bank to create those tests. You note that you cannot import items from outside Eagle into Eagle. So it's kind of a standalone system. To use Eagle, you're only using Eagle items. But again, remember, these items are created by the same company, DRC, that creates Data Recognition Corporation. It creates our spring tests. So we feel good about the alignment there. These are also approved by our State Department. So we feel good about that. And once you've set up tests, then you can go to student testing. If you've not already set up your student groups, you can click student groups and create new student groups, basically your class periods or however you have your students divided. And then once you have those student groups, then you can assign tests. You can set up test sessions. You would you choose the group and make the assignment. And then those students log in, just like they log in to take a diagnostic or anything else, diagnostic or DRC interim, and they're able to find these tests in that platform. And then you've got reports, and then the educator scoring that I just showed you a second ago, just showed you the screen where it is in the user guide. All right, that's all I have as far as information. I would love to hear some discussions, some feedback, some questions. So I'm going to be quiet at this point, unless you ask me a question or have some suggestions, and I'll stay on as long as you guys are here. Thanks for coming. If you need to go, again, use Eagle whenever you can, and let me know if you need more specific help. Have a great evening.